as we're already done with discussing four different elements that play an important role in terms of an individual identifying himself or herself. To begin with, we had started off with social class, followed by gender, followed by ethnicity, and then age. Now, let's connect all four of them. Let's talk about globalization. Let's talk about how our identities have or have not changed because of globalization. To begin with, it is pretty important that we understand what the word globalization over here means. Globalization can be defined as an ongoing process which involves the increasing interconnectedness and interdependency of the world's nations. Now, today in this global era, many people see this as a postmodernist era. There are but there are people who claim, there are sociologists who claim that globalization has taken place, or in other words, and globalization is about the extent to which different nations are interconnected, different nations are interdependent on each other, and people from different parts of the world have start seeing uh, others as a single global economic, political, and a cultural system when you see this entire world as one. When you talk about globalization, we're talking about technological advancement. In today's era, we've seen how individuals from our part of the world, maybe just to use as an example, are connected with individuals from different parts of the world. So, an ongoing process that has to do with interconnectedness, that has to do with interdependence. You've seen the conflict between Palestine and Israel, Palestine being so far from our part of the world, the impact, the economic, the cultural, the political impact it has had on our part of the world is again something that I would want to use to help you understand this. So we're not only interconnected, but at the same time we're interdependent on each other too. Recently, you saw how Donald Trump was elected as the president of the United States of America, and the impact it is going to have on our country's economy, the impact it is going to have on our country's political scenario is something that we all do have an idea about, or we all do understand. Now, talking about the supporters of globalization, people who support globalization claim that it has brought an increased amount of choice for an individual, unlike the past. Now, today, there are people over here in a South Asian country like Pakistan consume uh, who consume products, who consume media from many other parts of the world. The influence that the South Korean culture, South Korean pop has had on us is something that we cannot deny or ignore. Now, that's just one example. There could be many others too. Now, the question that rises over here is, has globalization brought about the social construction of new forms of identity? So the question that rises here is it true that globalization has led to different and newer forms of identities being constructed? In other words, back in the past, when we used to differentiate amongst individuals on the basis of social class, on the basis of gender, on the basis of ethnicity and age, is it true that these different distinctions are today less significant as compared to other different forms of identities that have been formed? Now, having a look at what Cochrane and Payne have to say about this, the lives of ordinary people everywhere in the world seem increasingly to be shaped by events, by decisions, and actions that take place far away from where they live and work. So, I gave you guys an example of Palestine. I gave you guys an example of the United States of America. Taking this ahead, let's talk about globalization affecting local identities. Is it true that because of globalization, our local identities have started getting affected? According to Anthony Giddens, who came up with the idea of structuration, if you recall, globalization is seen by many as a deliberate Western attempt, right? We're talking about the Western society deliberately trying to encourage social norms amongst the youth of Islamic nations to weaken the Islamic identity. Understand this. Anthony Giddens, who came up with the idea of structuration, believes that many people see globalization as a deliberate, emphasize on this word deliberate, as a deliberate Western attempt to encourage liberal social norms that might not be in line with Islamic, Islamic, with an individual's Islamic identity. So, a deliberate Western attempt to encourage liberal social norms amongst the youth so that their Islamic identity is supposedly weakened. Now, taking this ahead, adoption of some Western norms is seen as a threat by some dominating males and the elite in Islamic countries. Now, adoption of some Western norms such as equal right to women. Now, bear this thing in mind, this syllabus has been written by people in the West, and of course, is influenced by the Western ideology or by the Western mindset about how Islamic countries are like. So, adoption of some Western norms is seen as a threat by some dominating males and the elite in Islamic societies. For example, women being given equal right. Now, again, I mean, for someone who knows Islam, is aware that Islam by no mean at all denies any right to women. Number two, free speech. Number three, promotion of democracy. Now, these three, as our syllabus content suggests, are Western norms. These are Western norms that are seen by some, let's use the word, some extremist Islamic societies as a threat to the dominating male and the elite in Islamic societies. Taking it ahead, globalization has exposed traditional societies to influence of consumerism and materialism. Now, today, sitting in a South Asian country, the influence we see on our consumption patterns, on our materialistic lifestyle, is more so a Western idea. Now, this has only been true because of the exposure that we have sitting over here, the exposure that we have to the Western societies. For instance, if I talk about this exposure, I could refer to the exposure over here through technological advancement. You have different social media applications and websites that have helped individuals, even in our part of the world, getting more of exposure to the Western world as compared to the past. Materialism, fashion, pop culture is seen by many as corrupt and a distraction for the young, taking them away from religion. For example, in 2014, 6 teenagers in Iran were sentenced a year in prison and 91 lashes for dancing in public. This is just one example you guys could use if you feel like there are many other examples too. Now, we just spoke about Anthony Giddens, how Anthony Giddens saw that globalization is seen by many. Now, I'm not saying Anthony Giddens believes this. Anthony Giddens believes that many other people believe that globalization is a deliberate attempt to encourage liberal social norms amongst the Muslim youth so that their Islamic identity is weakened. Now, having a look at what Zygmunt Bauman has to say about this, according to Bauman, globalization has had a strong effect on local identities. Increased number of choices today have made individuals more aware of the global risks to their identity. Now, we are talking about, now, when we talk about, or as we talk about postmodernism, remember we have spoken about this numerous times earlier. According to the postmodernist perspective, individuals today have a lot of choice. The amount of choice you have could lead to you feeling uncertain. You feeling uncertain about the social class you belong to. You feeling uncertain about your gender. You feeling uncertain as to how your as you feeling uncertain about your age as well as your ethnicity. Now, Zygmunt Bauman believes globalization had a very strong effect on local identities, right? So globalization, according to Bauman, not only has the potential, but already has had a strong effect on local identities, where increased number of choices today have made individuals more aware of the global risks to their identity. You know, when you are aware that you can choose your identity, when you're aware that you can choose to live your life the way you prefer, the way you want to, there are more chances that your local, that your maybe ascribed identity experiences a risk here. This has led to some embracing new freedom while others clinging to the fundamental forms of identity, the promise absolute truth, and that promises absolute truth and certainty. Now what Bauman is trying to explain over here is that us as individuals, because we see we have a lot of choice today, the more choice we have, the more chances there are that we would feel, or the more choice we have, the more chances there are that our local identity, that our ascribed identity might feel threatened. Now allow me to make it. Okay, so I did not yeah. Now this is what I'm trying to explain here. We, number one, spoke about Giddens. According to Giddens, likewise, if we talk about Bauman, Zygmunt Bauman, the postmodernist, Giddens was the person who came up with the idea of structuration. Do not get confused. Structuration. Do not get confused between structuralism and structuration. Bauman was a postmodernist. According to Bauman, globalization has given individuals more of choice. And this choice has led to uncertainty. Individuals may feel more uncertain because of the amount of choice they have today, and this uncertainty has put their local identity to a risk. This choice has put their local identity, their ascribed traditional ascribed identity at risk. Now, taking this ahead, next let's talk about hybrid identities. For this, when we talk about hybrid identities, what does the word hybrid over here mean? If we use the word hybrid, the word hybrid is typically used to refer to something, I mean, a mixture of something, right? When we talk about hybrid identities, this is a complex form, or when we talk about hybrid identities, we're actually referring to the extent to which individuals today are affected by different identities. We're talking about the extent to which individuals today have picked elements from different identities and different cultures, different value system, different traditions, different customs, and put them together. Now, examples of these hybrid identities could be in terms of individuals who are biracial, individuals who are multicultural, individuals who hold dual citizenships, individuals who come from a mixed ethnicity, individuals who may be bilingual, individuals who may be multilingual, individuals. I mean, this could be, in addition to this, could be your digitalized identities as well. The identities individuals, I'm giving this example because this stands to be more true for your age group, the online and the offline identities that individuals carry, maybe while playing different games. Now, as we talk about hybrid identities over here, this idea of hybrid identity challenges the traditional notions of fixed singular identities, right? Now, idea of fixed identities is being challenged over here. The idea of singular or single identities has been challenged over here. Now, when we talk about hybrid identities, when and as we talk about the word when and as we use the word hybrid over here, we should know that the word hybrid refers to the combination, we could say, I mean, I just might as well just write this down. Hybrid refers to the combination or the mixture or the blending of different identities. Now, this at times leads to the formation, or this at times gives birth to newer identities. Local identities today have started interacting with global identities. This has been true because of social media, because of mass tourism, because of cultural commodification through movies, sports, cuisines, music, which many people say also led to globalization. Now, the word I'm using over here is globalization. What does the word globalization over here mean? See, as the name suggests, globalization looks like it is a combination of globalization with localization, right? Now, where there's a possibility that many global processes are adapted according to the local context, right? Now, many global processes adapting to different local contexts. Now, again, for instance, the introduction to, let me just, yeah, let's use McDonald's as an example. Even when we boycotting McDonald's because of the support they're showing towards Israel. But nonetheless, over here, when we talk about, or as we talk about globalization, we are talking about how, just have a look at how McDonald's has used different has how McDonald's has picked up elements from different local cultures, has tried adapting to different local cultures so that it could adjust according to the local so that it could adjust according to the local society. Now, taking this ahead, globalization is a term used to refer to the fusing of global products with local cultures to produce unique hybrids. This could be an example. According to Martel, globalization has two elements to it. Global products being produced to adapt a local culture to appeal local market and consumers. Again, this is an amazing example. McDonald's has adapted to reflect local tastes and avoid offending local cultures. Number two, local cultures select elements of westernized global culture that please them, adapt to local cultures and needs. That is localizing the globe to produce a hybridized popular culture and identity. Bollywood could be an amazing example. Now, I hope this has been easy to understand. Moving on towards cultural appropriation. Now, when we talk about cultural appropriation, what is cultural appropriation here? Yeah. When we talk about cultural appropriation, what does the word cultural appropriation over here mean? In this particular context, when we're using the word cultural appropriation, it refers to the act of taking or using different elements of another culture. I just put it down over here. Using elements from another culture. Now, this is usually from marginalized and oppressed groups. I mean, the examples that we have ahead would help you understand this even better. Now, the adoption or use of elements of one culture by members of different cultures as a largely negative phenomenon. Now, why is it that we are using the word a negative phenomenon over here? It's pretty important that we understand. Now, when we use the word negative phenomenon over here, usually, I mean, the what do you call it, the idea that we're carrying over here is that these different elements are picked from another culture to exploit them, or to, if exploit is too harsh of a word, let's just say to distort those cultural elements. Now, it is again important that we understand that the word cultural appropriation should not be confused. Cultural appropriation should not be confused with cultural exchange. Because when you're using the word cultural exchange, you are actually talking about mutual sharing over here, mutual sharing of different cultural elements. However, on the other hand, if you're using the word cultural appropriation, I'm just doing this so that you could understand that there's a difference between the two, and the two should not be used interchangeably. So when we use the word cultural appropriation, we could say this takes place unilaterally. This is one-sided. Now, it is seen as a form of cultural theft. It is seen as a form of cultural theft used in disrespectful manner without acknowledging to its cultural source. Example, body or facial piercing has been adopted from India, and dreadlocks have been adopted from Rastafarians. Just in case you're not aware of Rastafarians, here you go. This would help you understand this better. Now, there are many consequences that people think or say cultural appropriation has. For instance, there are many people, we could say the impact of, or the likely impact of cultural appropriation and impact of this cultural appropriation could be the erasure of cultural heritage, or rather say, this could be seen as an attempt. This could be seen as an attempt to eradicate a particular cultural heritage. This could be seen as an attempt to maybe exploit marginalized groups. This could be seen as being less authentic, or this could be seen as a loss of cultural authenticity. Now, we were just discussing cultural appropriation, and we were discussing cultural appropriation under the heading of the impact of globalization on identity, under the broader heading of globalization, identity, and social change. We were discussing this under the heading of social identity as a change. That was topic number 1.3. Like I had said, if you have a look at the past papers, you'd see this to be the most popular topic on which you've had numerous questions before. I'd want you all to go through this. The question over here reads, evaluate the view that the extent to which ethnic identities are changing has been exaggerated. Now, if you're done going through this, I'd want you all to read through this question as well. Evaluate the view that the extent to which social identities are changing has been exaggerated. Happens to be a 26-mark question. Read through these points.